More money, more problems. Raising the minimum wage sounds like a good idea, but in the long run is bad for everyone. As a former small business manager, I saw firsthand what happened when the minimum wage was raised to $8 an hour, so I can only imagine the trouble that it'll bring almost doubling it. If you've been watching the news lately, you've probably seen some of the protests about raising the minimum wage from the current $8 to $15. Minimum wage was implemented in 1912 when the government intervened and made 25 cents the lowest that a person could be paid. The minimum wage is known as a price floor, meaning it's the lowest price that can be paid for an hour's work. The thought of doubling your income seems like it would be a good idea, but what you don't know are about some of the consequences that result from raising the minimum wage. First, raising the minimum wage undermines our free market economy. Minimum wage causes small businesses to struggle, and the minimum wage causes a number of unintended consequences. So let's explore these a bit further. Let's talk about the minimum wage and how it undermines our free market economy. Part of what makes America so great is our economic system. And a free market economy is an economy in which the prices of goods and services are set freely by the consent between sellers and consumers, in which laws and forces of supply and demand are free from intervention by the government. The minimum wage is a government-imposed price for an hour's work, and the minimum wage is known as a price floor, which results in surpluses, which in cases would be a surplus of workers. We'll get to that in a minute. As wage increases, more and more people will enter into the job market. As wage increases, employers hire less and less people. For those people that get to keep their jobs, the wage increase is great. But what about all of those people that can't get a job, or the ones that lose their job because of the minimum wage? Let me show you a graph used in my 9th edition microeconomics class. Ta-da! So we have a supply and a demand curve. On the vertical axis, we have the price for an hour's worth of work from $0 to $15. And then at the bottom, the number of people that are willing to enter into the job market. So right now we're at about $9, which is where our demand for employers and our supply of workers meets, which is about 200 million jobs. Now when the minimum wage goes up to $15, employers are only willing to pay about 150 million people $15 an hour. But with the increased wage, 250 million people are willing to supply their services. So this triangle right here is the surplus of workers. So now at $15 an hour, 150 million people will have $15, which is great. But overall, 100 million people will not have a job. And then the 200 million that were employed, now 50 million of them are out of work. So, let's explore another negative effect of the minimum wage. Raising the minimum wage causes small businesses to struggle. According to the U.S. Small Business Administration, 99.7% of businesses are considered small businesses. Small businesses are the #1 employer of people, and small businesses account for 64% of new jobs created annually. Some businesses are relying on cutbacks to survive. American Express conducted a survey to figure out how these businesses plan on dealing with the new minimum wage. 42% of businesses say they will hire less people. 43% will decrease employee hours, and 38% of small businesses will lay off workers. Small businesses don't have the same profit margins that big corporations do. The $15 an hour minimum wage has passed already in Seattle, and the Seattle Times has reported a survey that found that 1 in 7 businesses are expected to close their doors. In fact, some businesses have already closed their doors. But wait, there's more. The minimum wage has other unintended consequences to consider. Businesses will increase their prices on their products and services. In that same American Express survey, 60% of those business owners intend on raising their prices. Increasing prices helps to cover the extra cost of labor. Employers will be expecting more from their employees that cost them more money. Entry-level jobs and jobs that teenagers typically held have become jobs that now require you to have previous experience or a college education to be hired. Teenagers and unskilled workers are slower and tend to make more mistakes. Therefore, it's in the owner's best interest to hire someone that would require less training and that would make less mistakes. So speaking of those entry-level jobs, they are disappearing. Low-level jobs are being outsourced to companies overseas where wages are much lower. Software and other forms of technology are also used to save businesses money on the cost of labor. For example, the Huffington Post has an article about a man in China who replaced his entire waitstaff with robots. Because the robots are cheaper and more reliable in the long run, because they don't call off of work and they don't require benefits. Higher level workers are also being replaced with employees willing to do the same work for less money. In an article written by Josh Harkinson, he shows us that a lot of tech companies are bringing in smart, tech-savvy workers from India and China to work on visas. 65,000 visas were issued in these last few years, and demand has grown now to 300,000, and currently there is an act in Senate to try to increase that number even higher. So now ask yourself, is it worth it? As you can see, there are numerous reasons why you should not support the minimum wage increase. First, raising the minimum wage undermines our free market economy. It makes small businesses struggle, and it causes a number of unintended consequences. In a perfect world, wages would increase and everyone could be happy. But the truth is, small businesses struggle to keep afloat, and employees lose hours, or even worse, lose their jobs while prices increase. Pick that up. So, 43% of you here today will have your hours cut. 38% might be laid off. 60% of the places where you shop will increase their prices, which means 100% of you here today will be affected. We can't afford to let the minimum wage hurt more than it helps. Thank you.